Hi, everybody. This is Steve Maggi from SMA Law Firm. Welcome to Building the Bridge. I'm here with Elliott Alderman, an IP and tech attorney based in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Steve. I'm glad to be here.
So we deal with a lot of international clients, and intellectual property is a big issue. How is intellectual property an asset?
I look at intellectual property, unlike a lot of other practice areas, that it's more than just a cost center. You can monetize your content or a brand, and by monetize, I mean if you're creating content, and content would be a book or a movie or a work of visual art, there's a license where there's a licensee who's willing to pay money for it. And the way that you monetize it is that you have a careful regime where you have registrations and you have contracts that are carefully drafted. And that's the value of going through the process of getting a copyright or a trademark registration. It's also beneficial to have landscape advice very early on. Often I have situations where I'm cleaning up the mess from another lawyer or a client that didn't want to spend money. And IP is a very significant asset, and it's fairly universal in ways that a lot of clients don't realize. So you would think of copyright in an entertainment situation, so a sound recording, a movie, a book, work of visual art, but it's a lot more ubiquitous than that, because even a dry M&A agreement, intellectual property is a very significant asset of the purchase of a company. So you want to make sure you have their trademarks and the goodwill. And even situations for a company that isn't a content company, like an entertainment type of company, their basic, non-sexy, non-interesting manuals and catalogs and things like that, which are likely protected by copyright, and they're probably registered if it's a big enough company. And you want to make sure when you're purchasing that you get the rights to all of that. And for trademarks, trademarks are a very significant asset of a company because it's their brand. And very large companies have huge assets of brands throughout the world. And they have gone through the process of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, because that's essentially what intellectual property is. And they value the assets. So it's a worthwhile investment to go through the process of registering. And for smaller companies, startups, foreign companies working in the United States, it's a very valuable undertaking to have to talk to someone about what the universe is of what you're creating, what you're using, because while you're protecting your intellectual property, you also want to make sure that you're not infringing others' intellectual property. So if you're a user of content, if you're a user of brands, you want to make sure that you have rights to things before you use them without license.
You know, we like to throw out expressions in America, and one of them is go big or go home. And I feel like small companies, one of their weaknesses, I guess, or fault, is that they're not only trying to lower their costs to a minimum, but they're not thinking big. And if they were to think like bigger companies in terms of protection and monetization, then that could help them actually be more lucrative and more successful, right?
Yeah, and I think small companies are more nimble. But I remember talking to a client and saying, I was kind of exasperated, and I said something like, being judgment proof isn't a business model. So that's one of the things that small companies need to recognize, that it's great being nimble, it's great being flexible, but there are things that you need to do. And some of the costs of legal compliance are very necessary, and is one of them. And if you look like this asset, you can protect someone from damaging your brand if you enforce it. If you're in the market for licensing content, you can make a lot of money from that. So IP is a very valuable asset. It isn't just a cost. It's also a means to make money.
I think that's a wonderful way to spin it, and it really does make it a lot more sexy to me for people to fork out that money and to do that pre-planning and really be diligent up front in order to make themselves more profitable over time.
Yeah, they're investing in themselves. That's a very worthwhile way to look at it, is that you're investing in yourself and in your intellectual property.
I love it. So if somebody is interested in protecting their assets and really thinking big, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, they can call me at 202-596-5682. My website is www.thecontentlawyer.com. And my email is Elliott, ELLIOTT, @thecontentlawyer.com.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for this. It was
Thanks,
great
Steve.
talking to you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thanks.